Paladins are some of the most intriguing characters within the Crusade lore. Fed the purest blood of the metachrist, they are dubbed near-perfect communicants, those who eat the flesh and blood of the metachrist for high-risk journeys into hell. The metachrists themselves likely being clones of the original. But outside of the pure blood, what made them special for their roles? What history did the traitor Paladin echo? And I'm not talking about Judas there. What could their names be based on some real world lore? Let's find out. So welcome back to the trenches and let's begin. So my theory is, what if the Paladins are clones of the apostles of the Redeemer? While Jesus had many followers, the 12 apostles were his closest disciples, and they left a mark on the early Christian church. They were personally chosen by Christ himself, and those closest to him, after taking his blood, might be better to handle its power. In the words of the second metachrist, the metachrist did cut its flesh, and gave it to the disciples. Its ruined mouth could not form the words, but it grunted noises that the Mentalist monk translated as, "Take, eat, this is my body." And the metachrist did leak blood from its eyes and mouth, which the Mentalist monk caught in a chalice, once again translating the metachrist's painful noises, "Drink ye all of it." So what could they be cloned from? There are some reliquaries associated with the apostles that could work, though not one in every case. A reliquary is a container or shrine to which sacred relics are kept, and if the Christ can be cloned from, let's say, his DNA, then why not his followers? When hell is invading the planet, who better to venture into hell than those closest to him, that can be trusted with the high-stake tasks literally only the Paladins, with their armour, can perform in each circle of hell. There are records for most apostles where their DNA could be taken from. For example, the skull of St. Paul. We are told Paul was beheaded under Nero in Rome, 2 miles from the location of his martyrdom. He was buried by a devout Christian woman in a Roman necropolis, and St. Peter had chains. The chains of St. Peter refer to the chains with which the Apostle Peter was imprisoned, and are venerated as relics, particularly in San Pietro in Rome, where they are kept in a reliquary under the main altar. He was locked up by Herod for preaching his faith. An angel freed him and led him out of the prison, and so we have the chains. Judas will be the exception to this, but maybe this role could give him a second chance that would fit with our world's version of the Redeemer. So there are the examples that could be used by the Mentalist order to remake the apostles as the Paladins. An historical tie for the Paladins are the 12 Paladins of Charlemagne. They were the greatest warriors of his court. The Charlemagne in question was the king of the Franks and the Holy Roman Empire, and may be a source of inspiration for the Paladins in Trench Crusade. Gerin is the name of one of them in the Trench lore, and that was the name of one of the Paladins as laid out in the Song of Roland, which is tied to the 12 Paladins of Charlemagne. It's a French epic poem that involved them and Charlemagne. Now of the Paladins in that poem, one of them was a traitor, the one called Ganelon. Now how might that echo the Paladin that went over to hell, that the church denies fell? The Ganelon in the poem was married to Charlemagne's sister, and was a baron and Roland's own stepfather. Roland being the military leader in the song. Now Ganelon's dislikes spread to Roland's popularity and success in the battlefield, and when he is sent on a mission to the Saracens, he's blinded by hatred for what he's asked to do, offended, and vows to seek vengeance. Now this is in the form of treachery, like the Paladin. He plots an ambush, but it doesn't play out like he wills it to. A comrade of Ganelon's is defeated, and in a trial by combat as well, and so in the eyes of God he's branded as a traitor, for in the eyes of God the trial is undertaken, and the winner is the one that holds the truth. And so Ganelon was torn apart by 4 horses. That's not the only tie that this has to trench lore and the real world lore it draws on. The 9 circles of hell in Dante's Inferno is referenced many times across the trench lore, and in the actual Divine Comedy, Ganelon also features. He has been banished into the depths of hell as punishment for his betrayal. He dwells in the 9th circle. This is the most severe, and there he is punished by an icy wind, as your soul is frozen in ice, so you can't move or even bend your head as it strikes you over and over for eternity. Another real-world reference when it comes to the creators of the communicants is the Mendelist Order, a scientific order of the Church who used genetics to clone the Redeemer, to take his blood and flesh and feed it to soldiers to create better ones. Now it's named after Gregor Mendel. We are told by Nature.com his principles of inheritance form the cornerstone of modern genetics. Traits are passed down in families in different patterns. Pedigrees can illustrate these patterns by following the history of specific characteristics as they appear in a family, and the Britannica nicely ties this back into the trench law when it says the first person to lay mathematical foundation of the science of genetics in what came to be called Mendelism. These principles compose what is known as the system of particulate inheritance by units or genes. The later discovery of chromosomes as the carriers of genetic units supports Mendel's 2 basic laws, so that all ties in very nicely. One of the things I like and appreciate about trench law is how it has so many ties to real world in terms of the actual historical references, and of course the mythology, and I'm discovering a lot of that as things come out and I'm researching things for myself at those moments, which is fun. I've always enjoyed mythology from ancient Greece to Norse and so on, and this law combines those passions nicely for me, so let me know what you think to this law or theories you might. Does it resonate with you, or do you have other ideas you prefer? So if you like this video on the Trench Crusade, then why not try this one? And there is a Trench Crusade playlist if you want more videos on the subject. I also cover 40k, and there's a playlist and currently a weekly video on a Saturday for that. I slowed down on that honestly, the 40k stuff. One every day was too much for me in terms of 40k plus the Trench Crusade. I'll continue to cover it though, at a pace of probably about 1 to 2 a week when I get the chance. There are also 2 40k playlists. One is for everything and one focuses particularly on the dark age of technology. So here at the end of the video, I'm going to do one of the things where I look at my desktop and tell you what I'm working on at the moment. Not all these ideas may come to fruition, however, it's interesting just to share it with you anyway. So we have a video on the Lake of Fire, which is a place in hell in Trench Crusade, and the real world in terms of the law that's mentioned in. And I take a look at the real world law on Solomon and how that ties into the magic used by the alchemists of the Iron Sultanate. The metal orichalcum is a metal that's a miracle made on the advice of a saint that lets armour still be effective against more powerful missiles. And a drop in also on the Red Brigade, an SAS style group made from those of the faithful that have lost people in the war. And that answer to the Duke. One building on the trench map, looking at the translations of the Latin from someone who was very kind to post it on Reddit, and 2 figures that appear on the map, a giant serpent and a witch from folk myth dubbed Baba Yaga. And catching up on the one I'm about to start, I take another look at the followers of the left-handed path, taking a look at what the left-handed path is in occult circles in terms of the definition of it, and examine the concept of the hunters, comparing them to the many myths surrounding the wild hunt, and try at least to answer the question, what else could they worship? What dark profane beings? So I'll wrap that up there. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to you commenting down below.